the money always pops up because money is something that's just universal. Money is like it's like the oxygen of our society. You can't go through a day without confronting oxygen, food, the basic things, right? So you don't have to necessarily wake up thinking about air to be affected by it, right? So like money, I see money as the same way. I do not see money as some kind of like, like this specialized topic where we have to sit and only focus on the money. I see money as a tool. Money is a pathway to the real wealth, and the real wealth is all the things that money can't buy. See, that's how you get to what I might call financial heaven. Financial heaven is not having a bunch of money in your bank account. Financial heaven is what you know what to do with that money in your bank account. When you know how to use that money to make your life better. And the thing is, we also know that not having enough money and not being financially prepared can make your life worse. Give me a yes if you agree. Give me a yes if you can imagine. Let's be intentional with our meditation here. Imagine times where a lack of money made your life harder, made your life more stressful. Can you imagine that? I know a lot of people that are miserable. My wife is a therapist and she's really, really into her profession. She's seeing a client right now, literally. She's actually seeing, she sees clients every morning. And one of the biggest things that pops up a lot for her clients is money issues. Money can cause fights, money can cause stress, money can make your life complicated. Or as Diddy used to say, more money, more problems. And I don't know if anybody has more problems than Diddy right now, if you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, with that being said, just to kind of frame that discussion, I wanted to ask you all a question today as you come into the chat. And by the way, oh, some of you are asking what's my wife's website. It's coachingwithdralicia.com. That's coachingwithdralicia.com. And by the way, my wife does a lot of stuff in our Black Financial Therapy department in the Black Business School. We're the only two PhDs on the planet who have a Black Financial Therapy department. You won't find this at Harvard. You won't find this at Yale. You won't find this at any HBCU. But we created the Black Financial Therapy department because in order for your mind to get right, your money has to get right. Shout out to Ash Cash. He's a buddy of mine. He's one of the Earn Your Leisure guys, and I love Ash. We've known each other a long time, and he has a book called Mind Right, Money Right. And one of the things that's 100% true that I really hope to impress upon you and get you to understand, again, you're talking to a guy who wrote his dissertation on financial psychology. If you don't get your mind right, then your money will never be right. Right? If you don't address the trauma, if you don't address the deficiencies, it's going to be very, very difficult to have the discipline and the balance required to be able to obtain financial security. The nature of security in itself indicates a type of calmness, a type of contentment, a type of just balance. And so if you're not mentally balanced, then how in the hell are you gonna be financially balanced? If you're not content with every area of your life, what makes you think you're gonna ever be financially content? Give me a yes if you follow what I'm saying. I want you to kind of understand. I want to sit on this point for a minute so you'll hear me. Let me know if you get what I'm saying. If you can't find balance in your spirit, then how the hell are you gonna keep your bank account balance? How you gonna balance a checkbook when you can't balance your soul? Really? So balance is the key, man. And if you find your balance, then guess what? Your balance is gonna go up. You're gonna find that every balance in your and it won't just be in your wealth. It won't just be the money's the easy part. The money's the basic. That's the ground zero. That's the ground level stuff. You'll also find that your mental and physical health will improve. Your relationships will improve. And then you'll be in a situation where you get to say, not only am I doing well financially, but the people around me love me. I love them. We help each other. I help them. They help me. I'm elevated by their existence. I don't have to, I'm not succeeding in spite of the people around me. I'm succeeding because of the people around me. And the people around me are succeeding not in spite of me, but because of me. I talked to my girls the other day because my mother just graduated and went to heaven, and but don't worry about me. I'm gonna be all right. God got me. My mama gave me the God when I was a baby, and I've been good ever since. And I was telling them, they were talking to me about it and everything, and checking on me, and I appreciate it. And and I said if you want to know what my goal is as a dad is I do not want to be one of those men where you're at my funeral and you're thinking about how I made your life harder, right? I don't want you to be at my funeral thinking, man, this dude, oh my God, I'm so glad this dude is gone. Or now that the dude is gone, he didn't make any plans. He didn't prepare nothing for nobody. Now we all stressed out. He didn't plan for his own funeral. He thought he was never gonna die, and now we gotta all go do a GoFundMe and beg the church for money. And I'm sorry. I'm really, and right now maybe I'm speaking more so as a man, but even women understand this. My grandma got this. My grandma never made a lot of money, but her arrangements were airtight, right? And it just makes things easier on other people. My mother, we're burying her this week, airtight. Like it's already stressful enough to have someone pass. It's even worse when they acted like they were never going to pass, right? And but yet eating fried chicken and using dope the whole time and and getting into shenanigans that were going to kill them, but yet somehow they thought they were never going to die. And I said, I would love it if at my funeral, my goal is for you to be like, man, my life is better because this dude was around. Like I met this guy. This guy was in my life, and he added value to my life. And I would encourage other people, parents, especially men, like that should be the goal. Be a playmaker in your family, be an asset to your family. If you think of it like a team, like a football team, you don't want to be the guy who always fumbled the damn ball. You don't want to be the guy who threw five interceptions in a row. You don't want to be the guy who was dumb enough to run into the wrong end zone because that's what we do a lot of times, especially with our wealth and our economics. If we don't spend time in training camp, which every morning this is called Millionaire Training Camp. Millionaire Training Camp is I think that's essential to helping you understand how to play the damn game. So when the game is over and they're looking at the stat sheet, you want to be the Heisman winner. You don't want to be the guy who was who who was messing up every time there was an opportunity, who kept was fumbling, throwing interceptions, giving the ball back to the defense. Like you want to be the guy where everyone says we won the game because of you. In every family, I really impress upon you that when it comes to this economic thing, this is a really serious game. This is a very big deal, and people ain't playing with you. In America, I can confirm to you 100%, and I don't say this as any kind of financial influencer. I've never been a financial influencer. I am a financial scientist. I'm a financial scholar. I've written original research papers on this topic, not books. Research papers, that's a whole nother level. You get the books out of the research papers because the research papers discover new ideas that have never been discovered by anyone in the history of all mankind. You got to understand, I want y'all to understand this. To write my dissertation and get it passed at Ohio State, I could not just regurgitate information that was out there. I had to go make a discovery, right? And this is a high level. This is almost like ninja level understanding of a topic, like molecular level. So as a person who understands these things from a molecular level, who's meditated on this for many decades, I can confirm to you that you live in a society where money is the god. Money is the god. Capitalism is the Wizard of Oz. That's the big hungry beast to which sacrifices are made. And if you don't understand how this thing works, that beast will eat you alive. Or like my friend Andre C. Hattrick likes to say, he says, "Own or be owned." When I went on the Breakfast Club, I wore his shirt because I love that statement. In this society, you must own something, or someone will own you. It's definitely a food chain, and you got people at the top of the food chain, and then you got people that are that are at the bottom. And I don't want you at the bottom. Okay. All right. So anyway, let me move on. Let me one thing I want to mention. We did our financial slumber party last week, and if you wanted to get a recording of what we did, we went through a training called Stock Market Decoded. You can go to financialslumberparty.com. That's financialslumberparty.com. Also, my wife, the therapist, tonight she's doing, for those of you that are interested in what she does with relationship therapy, she understands all the tools for healthy relationships. She's doing her book club meeting tonight, where she's covering a book related to high romance, like how to have the kinds of relationships that you really want to have. And then tomorrow, she's doing a session on a mental health Monday with some other Black therapists on dealing with your stuff, getting all of your crap out of your system as you go into 2025, how to be a new you, how to be the best version of yourself. So if you'd like to receive a link to join these sessions, pull out your phone, text the word love to the phone number 87948. So text love to the number 87948. Now, with that said, let me jump in. I want to share something with you guys. There was I saw this video that was on my Instagram, and I think Tiara KJ Williams might have shown it to me or something. But I really want y'all to watch this. And it's a conversation amongst three women. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, so it's on Dr. Boyce Finance. And so there are these three women having a conversation about money, and I thought it was really fascinating and just just really interesting and honest about like their expectations when it comes to money. And I'd like to get your take on how you feel about this. If you feel that these women are gold diggers, or if you feel that they are just honest women that have meaningful, realistic expectations. I'm not here to judge that. I just want to get your opinion on that. So let me share my sound real quick, and I'm gonna play this video for you right now. And let's see here. Those who can't see the screen, you can just hear it. So here we go. Let me turn it up. All right, here we go.
Knows I'm going to lunch.
He knows you're
He
going to
knows
lunch.
my vibe. He knows how I like to move, and he only sent $30.
I'm not gonna bend over backward for a man that is just sending whatever he can. But if I'm talking
Yeah.
to him next time I'm out, and he says, "Oh, you need something for lunch," I'm gonna tell him it's okay. Somebody already sent me $100.
Okay. If we're being completely honest, right here, right now, we've all eaten lunch for $30.
Yes.
Let's start 100%.
Wait,
Little cafe spot, baby.
I'm
You
getting
get
lunch for 17. I need to snap us and get something popping, but
We're not saying that we're ungrateful.
Right.
Food is food on the table. However, you know what the standard is.
Correct.
Me in that situation, handling it with grace. Thank you so much, baby. I'm so appreciative. I'm gonna still take a picture of that bill and I'm gonna send it to him. Thank you for the 30. That was the tip.
Also, men, if you know that you cannot give $30 or if it's hard for you to give, then you need to date within
Don't
your.
date. Do
You
not
can
date.
date. No, you can.
Do not date.
But date with the woman that number
not
one
date.
does not have that expectation, or number two, it's in that range.
So he knows I'm going to lunch.
He knows you're
He
going to
knows
lunch.
my vibe.
Okay. So give me like a word or one or two words to describe how you felt about that video. Give me one or two words, and then I'll kind of give you an assessment. Okay, I see petty. Agnes says, "Wow, sad, liability, silly. Who are these crazy women? Bullshit." Okay, gold digger. Oh Lord, y'all don't like that video. Okay, okay, okay then. Um, wow. Okay. Dumb. Trifling. Immature. Unrealistic. Delusional. Okay. All right. A headache. Ooh, look, buy your own lunch. Ooh, Lord. Okay. This is heavy. Okay. So, um, I think that my first question on this is and my wife and I have talked about this, and you guys know I wrote about this. I wrote a book called Financial Lovemaking, and you guys can have the book for free, the e-copy. You can go to boyceandalicia.com, boyceandalicia.com. My wife's name is Alicia, and it's really interesting because I remember the internet kind of ran off with a rumor when she and I got married, and I shared my proposal and also the wedding online, which got hundreds of thousands of views. Somehow the internet's an amazing place because people will just make up something out of thin air and then people will run with it. So the thing that people ran with was that my wife, that she secretly wanted to date my friend Willie D. Willie D is my buddy from the Ghetto Boys who he was in my wedding. And then the second interesting rumor was that she married me for my money, that she was a gold digger that really wanted to get access to my money. And we all, me, her, and Willie, we all kind of laughed about it because well, first of all, Willie's not that kind of guy. He can there's plenty of women that are interested in him, and he doesn't need to take his friend's wife. So he's not that kind of person at all. But we didn't worry about that. It was more entertaining, like, wow, where did people get this from? And then the second one was the second thing about her wanting me for my money. I said that's really interesting because if people knew how much money you had when you married me, they would completely know how silly that is. And that really speaks to the limitations of other people sort of trying to assess what's going on inside somebody's relationship. Like nobody can do that. And if that were to ever happen to you, you got to let that go. But with that said, though, I think that, I know that my wife happens to be a person who is not really into money at all. Like she kind of has this idea. She and I will debate this, right? She'll debate this where she'll say money should not matter at all. All that matters is love because that's how she's built. She's built it where she just is into the whole love thing 100%. Um, and I see that more as a value judgment more so than an absolute sort of ideology. Um, the reality is that people who grew up with some type of financial trauma, who were financially stuck as children, they tend to be very sensitive to money because it's almost like a deficiency of a certain vitamin in your body. If you have a deficiency of something, and that vitamin is in a certain type of food. Like for example, if you have an iron deficiency, I think there's iron in steak. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not a nutritionist, but let's say meat has iron in it, then you might crave meat. right? You really want meat because you're like, I don't know why, but I just want a steak. I'm gonna go to the steakhouse, right? So people that have a financial deficiency as children tend to be the ones who will notice first. Like, do you got money? You got money? You got money? And so when I saw the women speaking, again, these are not women. I've seen women like this. I never those are not my types of women. When you get money, you can kind of tell the difference, between the people that really want money and those that are interested in other things outside of money. I'm willing to bet you that all three of them grew up with some sort of unique financial experience in their background that shaped their views when it comes to money. Either they went through some extreme poverty and some financial trauma as a result of the poverty. My father left my mother and she had no money, so we lived in a one-bedroom apartment in the hood, and my brother got shot because he was out in the streets trying to provide for the family, stuff like that. So I swore at that moment I would never ever have money problems again, and I would never deal with a broke person again. I also realized at that time, because of what my daddy did, that I can't trust no man, and men are only good for providing money or making a baby with, but otherwise they're worthless. Maybe something like that, right? You can imagine a narrative that might have pop up like that, right? Or it could just be something where maybe you grew up the whole time and you were just, a complete princess and got everything you wanted. So that might make you a little bit, some might say spoiled. You can either argue that you either have high standards or you're spoiled or both, right? And I think that can be a little bit of a headache too. We always talk about that. We always talk about setting super high standards, especially for our daughters. And then mothers do that with their sons. Like they'll baby their sons and say, I want every woman to treat my son a certain way. And then unfortunately, I don't think spoiled people do very well in the world. I think spoiled people are a pain in the ass, right? So I think the ability to provide that balance is really what the answer is, right? Like, okay, I want you to have high standards, but I don't need you to think you're the center of attention in every situation you go into. There are other people. You're part of a collective. You're part of a family. You're part of a community. And part of a family, being part of a family is something that I think is kind of a lost art in our community. Dr. George C. Fraser talked about the possible extinction of the black family or the decline of the black family. And so when you don't really have a healthy family where you have give and take, the reciprocity, right? An ecosystem where I'm given, but I'm also be able to take, and then I give a little bit, then I take a little bit. I'm not just a taker, I'm not just a giver. When you don't understand that balance, it's very easy to go into situations with a type of desperation. Right? Let me give you an example. Let me give you an Has anybody ever seen a situation where, like, let's say you got a poor kid that like lived in like a really poor neighborhood and where you had to fight for food. Like, right, like they had seven siblings, there might be two cheeseburgers, and whoever couldn't get to the food first didn't get to eat. Or five pieces of chicken and six kids, and you had to fight to get that piece of chicken. Have anybody ever seen that? Like, I want you to imagine that, right? Okay. Now, how do you think, let's say that kid goes and visits his friend that lives in the suburbs, where there's never a food shortage. There's plenty of food for everybody. The mama can buy enough cheeseburgers for everybody, enough chicken for everybody. What does that kid usually do when it's dinner time? Y'all tell me, describe it in one sentence. How is that kid gonna react when there's plenty of food on the table? What are they gonna do? Put it in the chat. Anybody ever seen it? What are they gonna how would they typically respond? Or let's say there's a bunch of candy and they're not used to, like, candy's really hard to come by. What do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna hoard it. There you go. That's the word. Thank you, AJ. They're gonna be putting pieces of chicken in their pocket. Right? They're gonna be stealing stuff that they don't even need to steal, right? Like, not all the time, right? But they could, right? They literally, it's like, oh, I better get this. I better grab this before it's too late because I came from a scarcity environment, which gave me a scarcity mindset. And again, maybe my wife here could, I wish she was here so she could kind of give the psychologist or the therapist perspective. But I'm willing to bet you that extreme scarcity becomes a type of trauma that never goes away. And as I've told you, I mentioned this before. We got to remember this. The biggest economic challenge you have in the black community is undiagnosed, untreated trauma. A lot of us went through horrible stuff and nobody ever healed or even acknowledged it. It's like, oh, you're a strong black woman. Of course you're fine. You can't fix trauma by ignoring it. It doesn't go, it just sits in the background and just kind of like a little drum beat in your subconscious, and it just keeps messing up your life. It's like a little invisible demon that's just coming into every relationship you have and saying, I got you, right? Like ruining every situation that you're in, every choice you make is coping with this demon, this cancer in the spirit that you've never really addressed because you're strong and you can't tell nobody. Or either you're a strong black woman who don't need no man, whatever those stereotypes are, or you're a strong man who's just so masculine that you can't reveal the areas where you are vulnerable, where you are hurting, where you were treated unfairly. And there's ways to fix that. And I want to encourage you to consider that, okay? It'll just make life better, I promise. Because actually, when my wife got certified in trauma, one thing she told me that really kind of fascinated me was she talked about all the health effects that come from trauma. She said traumatized people who don't deal with their trauma, they're more likely to get cancer, they die earlier, they have, all these health conditions that come out of that. And not so it's not just the relationships, not just the mental health. It literally manifests itself in your body, like you die from this. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. So anyway, with this particular video, and I want to play it one more time because I want to kind of make a couple more remarks on this, sort of based on financial theory and financial psychology to kind of understand this. Uh, let me play it one more time. So I'll just be quiet and play it. Here we go.
Five. He knows how I like to move, and he only sent $30.
I'm not gonna bend over backward for a man that is just sending whatever he can. But if I'm talking to him next time I'm out, and he says, "Oh, you need something for lunch," I'm gonna tell him it's okay. Somebody already sent me $100.
Okay. If we're being completely honest, right here, right now, we've all eaten lunch for $30.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
100%. Little cafe spot, baby.
I'm
Yeah.
lunch for 17. I'm gonna snap us and get something popping, but
We're not saying that we're ungrateful.
Right.
Food is food on the table. However, you know what the standard is.
Correct.
Me in that situation, handling it with grace. Thank you so much, baby. I'm so appreciative. I'm gonna still take a picture of that bill and I'm gonna send it to him. Thank you for the 30. That was the tip.
Also, men, if you know that you cannot give $30 or if it's hard for you to give, then you need to date within
Don't
your.
date. Do
You
not
can
date.
date. No, you can.
Do not date.
But date with the woman that number
not
one
date.
does not have that expectation, or number two, it's in that range.
So he knows.
Okay, so one other thing I noticed in the video is it's kind of something that I kind of tried to politely mention, even when Kevin Samuels kind of did his thing. I like Kevin. Kevin did a video about me, and he was supportive of me, because I was being unfairly criticized about something that I had nothing to do with, but still, I like the guy. I think he was very, very smart. But one of the areas, I don't care, who the person is. If I disagree with you, I'm gonna tell you I disagree with you. It doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means I disagree. I felt like he generalized a lot, right? When you got into this whole conversation about high value man, high value woman, that literally was a complete violation of everything that economic theory ever teaches us about value. Um, when I worked in my doctorate, my specialty was an area called asset pricing. Okay. Asset pricing is basically valuing things. How do we construct value? And one of the biggest things about value that you have to understand is that value is in the eye of the beholder. Tell me if you understand what I'm saying. I don't want to talk over anybody's heads or sound uppity or nothing, but I gotta pull out my PhD on this and say valuation is not a universal idea. There's no such thing as like everyone sees this thing as being valuable. Let me give you an extreme example. Give me a guess if you remember. Do you remember when that they sold that piece of art, the banana taped to the wall for $6.2 million? Give me a guess if you remember when that auction took place. They literally had an auction at Sotheby's, I guess, and or maybe somewhere else. And somebody, a smart person, paid $6.2 million for a banana duct tape to a wall. It's a piece of art called The Comedian. And believe it or not, there's a lot of economic theory to completely justify that purchase, as crazy as it sounds. Now, I'm going to ask you all another question. If somebody said, I have a banana taped to a wall, um, would you pay $6 million for it? Or let's say they give you a discount. They say we're going to save you 3 million. You can pay 3.2 million for it. Would you buy that banana? Give me a yes or no. Would you consider that banana taped to a wall to be worth $3 million? Yes or no? Would you pay 1 million for it? Let's take 2 million off the table. I mean, we just gave you another $2 million. Come on now. Seriously, don't be stingy. You're saving $5 million on this. And well, yes or no? Would you do it? No, a lot of you would not. Now, some of you would, maybe because you understand a little bit more about valuation. You see, if you understand how art is valued and how markets work, then you would say, I don't know, let me think about that. Because here's the real answer to that question. The real question is, if I pay $1 million for this banana duct tape to a wall, and I have this certificate of authenticity that this was the artist who duct taped the banana to the wall, that this is the only piece of this art that other people can duct tape a banana to the wall, but it's not the same banana, it's not the same duct tape, it's not the same artist, it's not the same authenticity. And if I know, pay attention, if I know that I can find somebody somewhere that will pay me something even close to that 6.2 million for this piece of art, well, then I suddenly go from being the dumbest person in the room to being an absolute genius. That they in finance they call that the bigger fool theory. That you can find a bigger fool that's willing to pay a higher price than what you paid. That's what drives the whole art market. So value. So my point here is to say that whether you're talking about human beings on the dating market, it is a market. Just like the stock market is a market, just like the grocery store is a market, just like a nightclub is a market. If you talk about the dating market or anything else, valuation is very subjective. It's very subjective. So when Kevin would go into this space of like, if you're over 35, nobody wants you because you're not a high value woman anymore. I was like, stop that. Stop saying that, man. Not only does it mean you're hurting people's feelings, I know a lot of amazing women over 35 who are as gorgeous as the day is long. And, first of all, that's just some mean shit to say. Excuse my French. I thought I think you can make your point without being a jerk about it. But the internet likes that. The internet likes when people see people don't understand. Kevin Samuels did a lot of content before he blew up. A couple years before he passed, and it was very intelligent. It was very balanced. It was much more decent than it was, and people didn't really pay attention to him till he just strategically became kind of an asshole. Not all the time, but you know what I mean. Just kind of like I don't care how you feel. I'm dismissing you. I'm going to hang up on you if you disagree with me because you're stupid. When he started doing that, then people started liking that, and that's what the internet does. The internet tends to embrace extreme, chaotic personalities, and I just thought that was a problem. I did not enjoy that very much, and I thought that was beneath him. But with that also being said, valuation is subjective. So when people and anybody who says, "Well, that's a high value man, that's a high value woman," I'm like, under what criteria? Who are you talking about? Like, for example, if you talk about men, if you get a group of black men together and say, what women do you consider to be high value? Sure, there might be some areas that might be universal, like, well, the sex is good or blah, blah, blah. But then there might be another guy who says, yeah, the good sex is nice, but I kind of like a woman who's thin. And another guy's like, oh no, I wanted to have some meat on her bones. And the other guy's like, well, either one can work for me as long as she can cook, right? Whatever, right? So different people have different criteria of what's high value and low value. So anything that's universal, like when that woman said, if you don't have enough money, you shouldn't date, that's fundamentally, automatically, unconditionally, pretty much incorrect. It's incorrect because some women may say, oh, if you ain't got no money, you can't date me, right? That's okay. I think it's perfectly okay to have your own expectations, your own standards, your own whatever. I think that what made this video awkward and really a little embarrassing for these women there is that their comments really didn't tell you about the world. Their comments really tell you about them. We see you think you're defining, you think you're describing the world, but you're not describing the world. You're describing yourself. You're describing your background. You're telling me about maybe your financial trauma that led you to become so hyper obsessed with money that money, see, you got to understand, as a person who wants you to really think about money, I need you to understand that the reason I want you to think about money is so that you can stop thinking about money so much and start thinking about something else. See that's consciousness. That might have confused you. So let me say it again. Money is an obsession for many of us because money is a deficiency. When you address the deficiency, you have to hyper focus on addressing it so that you can stop thinking about the deficiency. Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you get it? Does this make sense to you? So here's the thing. When you have a deficiency and you haven't addressed it, then guess what? You go through life saying, oh, he got money, he got money, he got money, he got money. And then money does not become your liberator. Money incarcerates you and gives you nothing but a bunch of blind spots because that means any old asshole who might rape you, beat you, steal from you, lie to you, hurt your feelings, abandon you, can get into your life, get into your bed, get access to your body because he got money. Because you have publicly announced the ticket to admission. And I say this as a man who has always had money. I have had money for a very long time. When I was 31, my first job, I made six figures, and it's been upward ever since. So one of the things that I used to process and think about, because I think about things and I'm an observer and I'm a thinker, is I was really fascinated by how often I would run into women who were willing to give me the keys to the whole kingdom just because I could send you an extra $500 for rent. And I'm like, you don't understand. $500, that's not a lot of money to a person that has money. You mean you're willing to let me come in your house and do only God knows what? If I buy you like a $500 gift, that's what moves me automatically to the front of the line? That's a very dangerous way to view the world. Because there are a lot of rich men who have STDs that you can't get back. There are a lot of rich men who will destroy your life. There are rich men who will embarrass you in front of your friends, hurt your feelings, and possibly even kill you. You know, Phil Spector, remember Phil Spector? He was a really big music guy back in the 60s. And because all these women were attracted to him because he was rich and famous, he would like beat the hell out of them because he knew that they wouldn't, you ain't gonna do nothing. You don't keep letting me beat you I'll just write you a check every time I beat your ass. And it's not a lot of money to me. It's like, oh, $1,000. Okay, here you go. Right. But Phil Spector would spend $1,000 on, on toilet paper or something. Right? So the point of the matter is that you gotta be real careful when you bring money into the conversation because you have to be able to process the nuances of it. I believe that your goal should be able to look at things in a what is called a multivariate kind of standpoint. That's consciousness, the ability to see all things. Like, and here's the point. Here's another point I want to drill into on this. There's not really anything wrong, in my opinion. This is my perspective. You feel free to disagree. There's nothing wrong with those women having a financial preference. I told you every book on evolution says that generally speaking, women are attracted to various forms of security. Financial security is one type of security. I told you about that. When I wrote my book, Financial Lovemaking, I was fascinated with the women I talked to and how offended and how hurt they would be if the financial security was undermined, which goes back to this evolutionary belief that women want to just protect their babies. And if you can't protect the babies by providing and protecting and all this other stuff, then they're going to be very upset with you and maybe not even attracted to you. Their bodies, not in all cases, but in many cases, it seems like their bodies are almost wired to not want to reproduce with you, which is weird in the Black community, almost like it's flipped on his head. Because sometimes I go lie. Sometimes women will have a baby with a guy where I'm like, wow, why was that man even in your bedroom? But I'm not judging. I'm not judging. Let me just stop there. But generally speaking, they have a right to have that preference. I think that what makes it awkward is that they're stating their preference publicly and they're stating it as some sort of unconditional truth that everybody has to abide by. Like the one lady who said you shouldn't date if you don't have enough money. That's silly. Why you can't say something like that? Maybe she should say you shouldn't try to date me if you don't have any money. Because to me that's no different from a man saying you shouldn't try to date me if you don't cook, or you shouldn't try to date me if you don't have any hair. You shouldn't try to date me if your booty ain't the right size, whatever. And I think that people have a right to have those preferences. I think that what makes it easier is when you keep it to yourself. Like we've all, everybody should have preferences. Everyone should have standards. I had, my wife, I thought my wife was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. I loved her body. I love her. I love smart women. I really don't know if I could have married a woman who wasn't that smart, right? So there's preferences are okay. But I think that when you get to the point where you state your preferences and in a way that is dismissive and rude to people who don't meet that standard, I think that that's when you kind of gone over the line a little bit and really revealed yourself in a negative way. So if I say all women over the age of 35, that I'll never forget. That was the last thing that was so bad for Kevin, to say that as the last part of his legacy. Because I was like, man, now you're forcing me to disagree with you again. He's like, all women over 35, you're the leftovers, nobody wants you. And I'm like, I was probably upset about it because right before I married my wife, I'd made a personal decision to say that I don't want to date a woman under the age of 35 because I'm a grown ass man. I'm 45 years old. I don't want to date a woman. I don't want to date a woman in her 20s. That's like dating a kid. So like I like the women over 35 because you're young enough where you still look amazing, and but you're old enough where I can talk to you about a cartoon that came on in the 1980s and you're not going to look at me like I'm your grandpa, or whatever, right? So really I kind of think that that these conversations are really important conversations because what I want you to realize is that here let's look at the big picture perspective of what's happening in the world. Has anybody give me a yes if you've heard all the studies about global population decline? Has anybody heard about that? Especially in countries like Japan, mostly places where non-black people live, their populations are dropping. African people, God bless them, they didn't listen to Bill Gates when he was telling them to stop having babies. They just kept doing it. So Africa's going to be in a power position in the next century because they kept having babies, even when the rest of all the white people were saying stop having babies because you got too many people. Even the Asian people fell for that. China used to have too many people, so they implemented the one child policy. Now they're like trying to hurry up and get people to reproduce again. But sorry, you've already created a culture where in some Asian countries, it's really crazy. The men and the women can't stand each other collectively. There's like there's like the feminist movement, but then there's like the anti-feminist movement. And in South Korea, the men, my son was telling me about this. In South Korea, the men are like protesting and there are these like pink seats on the buses that you're supposed to give to the women when they get on the bus. And the men are literally sitting in the pink seats and saying, we're not giving you a seat. F you, right? And I said, oh, so they hate their women as much as some black people do. So we're not the only ones. So anyway, when you create that culture where the men and the women just are divided and don't want to deal with each other and are irritated with each other, don't want to sacrifice, don't want to, that's the key word, sacrifice for things like family and longevity and commitment and relationships. Well, then, yeah, you're going to have a reproduction problem. In fact, a lot of the studies say that since the pandemic, I want to say like over 70% of young men under the age of 25 haven't slept with a woman in over a year, which that means, see, that's the thing. People think sex is just about pleasure. No, people have plenty of pleasure in the world, but sex is ultimately for reproduction. Dating, mating, how you approach each other plays a big role in whether you have families, whether your genetics even survive in the next generation. See, we always keep thinking about like, oh, is he cute? And that it starts there, but it's supposed to turn into marriage and kids and all that. My mother and my father had a great story about how they met, and my father saw my mother in the library. He said he turned to his buddy. He said, "I'm going to marry that woman right there." And his buddy laughed, but my father was serious. He had just got back from Vietnam. He went up to another guy that was talking to my mother, and he said to the guy, he said, if I see you talking to her again, I'm gonna kick your ass. He literally did this. This is the kind of man my father is. So he knew what he wanted. And when you ask him, you say, well, what made you approach her in that way? He said, I knew what I wanted. I wanted your mother. And they literally they had their 50th wedding anniversary a month ago. 50 years. They did 50 years, 50, 5 decades together. And then a month later, my mother graduated and went to heaven. So and the attitude that was required for that to even occur was an attitude that you don't often see with a lot of young people now, and it really concerns me. It really does, right? So right now, if you look at the big picture, you have a global population decline. Even Elon Musk is concerned about it, right? Which is interesting. And then within that, you have kind of the breakdown of families and stuff like that. And people, it really in our community, you have a scenario where most families are not whole and complete. Biological mother, biological father, 4 or 5 kids. It's sort of disheveled sometimes, a little bit chaotic, and that becomes very confusing for the children. By the way, has anybody? How many of y'all? Give me a yes if you have been sort of the victim of a Rolling Stone or somebody that wasn't thinking about the future, that where the kids are just splattered everywhere, and you got siblings all across town, and so or somebody dies and there's kids that nobody knew about, and or you were maybe the family secret, or you were, and that was a little bit of my life. My father had a couple other kids, besides the one he had with my mother, which was me, and it made it awkward, like when we were all trying to coordinate all this, and it is kind of messy. And what that speaks to some extent, is a lack of strategy, a lack of discipline, a lack of commitment in terms of really and leadership. Really, it's leadership, right? If I don't see myself as a leader, if I'm a young man and I don't see myself as a leader, or I see myself as a victim, or I see myself just as somebody who's just going to go whichever direction the wind blows, then guess what? Then that's going to create a very unsturdy foundation for the thing that's supposed to become my legacy and supposed to become my family. Right? When you're not thinking long term, like when I talk to young guys, I'm like, look, you got to realize the things that you choose to do now are going to affect people that are not yet born. My grandfather made decisions in World War II that led to 60 years later having 50 people around the dinner table at Thanksgiving, all of whom knew exactly who their cousins were, who their siblings were, who the family was. And so ultimately, this sort of so these dating, mating conversations, where people are making these major decisions based on whether or not somebody can take them to the Cheesecake Factory, I think are very, very dangerous, actually. And it really is very damaging to legacy. And this is why I pay very close attention to how Black people are talking about their relationships right now, because I see us going in a direction where it's only going to be more chaotic, because we tend to think about sex as something like, okay, I'm going to have sex with you because it's going to be pleasurable. I'm not at all thinking about the fact that one day I'm going to be somebody's grandpa, and all these people are going to be judging the decisions I made when I was in my 20s and my 30s, and they may not judge them favorably. So when you talk about wealth and planning and investing and all this other stuff, I encourage you to sit and meditate on your life now. But I want you to also meditate on your life 30 years from now, and really try to see if the two reconcile with each other, or try to look down the path. This is consciousness. Consciousness, part of consciousness is, it reminds me of when Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player, used to say that he doesn't go where the puck is located. He goes where the puck is gonna be. He goes where the puck is going, right? So when you look at your life, I encourage you to say, well, where's the puck going? If I keep living like this, if I keep smoking and drinking every day, where's that going? What am I becoming? Oh, you're becoming an alcoholic. You're becoming a drug addict. If I keep womanizing and run around just doing whatever, what am I becoming? Well, you're not really becoming a husband and father necessarily. You might just becoming the guy who's like the old player, where you're 45, 50 years old, and then you're looking back at all the times that you just had all these worthless experiences and never accumulated to anything. So sometimes wasting your relationships a little bit is like wasting money, right? When think about this. If you look at your financial life and you look at the last 20 years of your financial life, for a lot of us, unfortunately, we were trapped in the moment. We were thinking about what we were going to do right then. We were thinking about things we were going to buy right away. We weren't really necessarily investing long term, and so we have all this energy, all this financial energy that we put out into the world. Am I lying? Right? This energy where we're spending here, we're buying this, buying that, getting a new car, paying money to go see some girl, whatever it is that you're doing with your money, and then somehow 10 years later, somebody's like, well, you do know that you spent $500,000 in the last decade. And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm not rich. But then when you look at it, you're like, wow, I did make $500,000 in the last decade. And you have nothing to show for it. You have nothing to show for it. You're like, man, gosh. And then when somebody like me comes along and I say something like, well, you do know if you just taken $1,800 and bought some Apple stock in 1997, you'd have between $2 and $3 million right now. You do know that, right? And it makes you, it's like a kick in the stomach. It's like, holy crap. So the thing is that building something doesn't require that you put everything into building. It doesn't mean that you didn't waste something. It doesn't mean that you didn't throw some money away every now and then and enjoy your life. It just meant that you had some little part of your brain where you were thinking about the future. Some part of your brain where you were just saying, okay, this too shall pass. This is not all that there is. 2024 is part of a bigger puzzle. It's part of a collective of years. 2025, 26, 27, 28, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. I need to look at I need to look at the whole forest. I can't just keep responding to every tree, because if you do that and you're always living in the moment, then what'll happen is that you'll look back at your life, you'll have a series of worthless moments that never accounted for that never amounted to anything. And that is what we see financially, right? We spend, 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 spend. Nobody invests anything at all. Next thing you know, you're looking back, you're like, damn, why am I still poor? And I've been working for 30 or 40 years. or health. I'm it's not like I'm planning to get diabetes and heart disease and die at the age of 55 from a heart attack. It's like no, right now I just want to enjoy this fried chicken. Or right now I know I don't want to go to the gym because I don't feel like it, right? So by not doing those little things, then it ends up amounting to big waste, gigantic amounts of waste. So if you're again, and so to just expanding and to extrapolate and kind of finish the point there, if I'm thinking about even my sex and my interactions with women and or the opposite gender or whatever, the same gender, I'm not judging. I don't care about that. And everything's down to like who I think is attractive in the moment, who's going to give me pleasure in the moment, what's going to give me a good experience in the moment, then all those moments end up amounting to nothing. And you can't, and then 30 years later, you have nothing that's sort of compiled from that, except for a bunch of worthless experiences. And in fact, when I listened to this old guy who was talking to a young guy, and he said, "Well, what's your biggest regret as a senior citizen?" He said that I spent too much time chasing women. That's all I was doing was chasing women the whole time, and I didn't build anything. I didn't build a legacy. I didn't sort of make a decision. And I encourage you to kind of think about these things as you go about making investments in your life. So we're not just talking about the financial investments. The financial is very important, but also we're talking about the other investments in terms of relationships, mental and physical health, because that interacts with your financial situation. It's very, very hard to be financially stable if you don't have a stable family, if you don't have stable mental health, or if you don't have stable physical health or good, healthy relationships. It's also, when you are financially stable, it does help to enhance your ability to pursue the relationships that you want and to have the mental and physical health, because people that struggle financially have a hard time being mentally stable and mentally balanced. That's why, for example, when these ladies say, "Hey, I really kind of want a man that has the ability to provide financially," I think that's very natural. I think that actually makes sense. I personally don't want my daughters just with men that don't even try. They won't even get up and go to work. They won't even do their best. Won't even make a plan, right? I don't want my daughters with a man like that, because men like that have a hard time running families. They have a hard time leading any type of organization. They probably couldn't even manage a Wendy's, right? So that's okay to have that preference, but I think when you make money your alpha and your omega, and and you make it into the be all end all, then at that point, money becomes a blind spot and money becomes a liability to your ability to pursue healthy relationships. When I wrote that book, Financial Lovemaking, I'd never forget some of the crazy stories I heard. There was one lady that married a really rich guy, and they were so rich they lived next door to Bob Costas. And she said she didn't realize that her husband also had a drug habit, and he was smoking a lot of crack. And if you don't know, crack can be costly because I hear crack is delicious. And so he was smoking so much crack that eventually the bank accounts were empty. She said, "I woke up one day, I had no money in the bank, I had no husband, and I was in this horrible situation based on this problem that I didn't even know was there." So when you just focus on the money, I think that can cause you to miss some of the other things that are there. So I encourage you to have a holistic, conscious approach to every single thing that you get involved with. By doing that, I think you'll be better off. Okay, so anyway, I'm finished talking. Thank you guys for hanging out. And one thing I want to mention is that we do have a great class, Black Money 101, if you want to get started on your wealth building journey. It's called An Introduction to the Power of Money. So if you want to take a look, go to blackmoney101.com. That's blackmoney101.com. If you want to be on the text list for this class, we meet every single day, 7 days a week at 10 a.m. Eastern. There are a few thousand of you in here, so I'd love to make it a million people. I just love talking to my people about wealth. But even if you're not Black, you're still welcome here, as long as you don't come in here with that anti-Black nonsense. Well, you're one of us. You're cool. So if you'd like to be on the text list to join this class, text the word morning, MORNING, to the phone number 87948. Text morning to 87948. And also my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins, she's a relationship therapist, a trauma expert, stuff like that. She's going to do her book club tonight and her mental health Mondays on Monday night. If you'd like to be notified, then text the word love to the number 87948. So text love to 87948 and she will reach out to you. And someone's asking, are there any evening classes? Yeah, I'll text some stuff out. So I'll let you guys know what we have going on in the Black Business School. So God bless you. Have a great day. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.